Hi, I'm Nate Adams. Welcome back to HVAC 2.0 onboarding. And this is the second piece of Sandler training where I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into what Sandler's and the Sandler sales system looks like within HVAC 2.0. So here is the Sandler process. And last time we talked about the Sandler submarine, how you go compartment by compartment, you totally flood it, you close the hatch door, and you move to the next one. So if you get these out of order, things fall apart. You're going to watch your closing ratios explode. Explode in a bad way. There's a reason that the 2.0 process is in precisely the order that it's in. So the Comfort Consult, when I was developing this along with Ted Kidd, we were trying to figure out the exact order of how to do things. We were developing this process, but I was just an independent consultant. So, and what we found was this system ends up selling HVAC accidentally, pretty much no matter what happens. So we developed this process and found ourselves fairly often getting into houses that weren't screwed up enough to move forward to do the more advanced process. And so that was a problem because I wanted to have a high closing ratio going to these because this is how I made money. So I'd do a comprehensive plan for them and then I'd get paid for project management. That was where the money was. So we had to figure out how to do all this. And when we put this Comfort Consult in the order that you see here, my closing ratio selling CPPs jumped from 50% to around 90. And now the CPPs to projects, it can take several years for people to actually get things together to be able to move forward. But now my closing ratio on comprehensive planning projects is over 90% as well. And like we discussed last time, you don't want the closing ratio to be your explicit goal. You want to do the process in a way that naturally results in that because you don't want to be coercive. So this process here is really solid because it follows the Sandler process. And so that's what we wanted to build in. This is why almost everyone that's using the system is seeing closing ratios on Comfort Consults between 60 and 85%. And on the other hand, they're spending less time on free quotes and not hurting their closing ratios there. So this is a numbers game at the end of the day. A free quote, most people are going to be kicking tires. But at least you can pull out the people that have real problems to solve and run them through the Comfort Consult. So we'll dig into a little bit more how that looks. But first, I just want to reiterate from the last video how the HVAC 2.0 process and software is meant to keep you on track. So this is my daughter bowling a few years ago, and she's got both of the kid things set up. So she has the bumpers pulled up, and then she has this little chute because she was having trouble throwing it even with the bumpers. So what we want to do, the process is sacred, like we talk about. So, I mean, there's going through step by step of this. And again, it looks very much like a submarine. But the software is meant to keep you doing the right step at the right time. So like the Comfort Consult's a really long form is what it works out to be. But if you do that in that order, you can be a newbie and still succeed. And that was what we wanted because we assume that, I mean, if you're taking this course, you're new to the building performance side of things because you're probably an HVAC learning this side. So you're a newbie. So we wanted this process to be very friendly to newbies. And so that's what we've developed. So it's putting the bumpers up. As you move forward, you're still going to need to use the software and the form that's there because if you skip steps, something's going to come bite you. Every question that is in the Comfort Consult form is there because either I got bit by it or someone that I know got bit by not asking. So the questions are there for a reason. There's going to be a few you'll be able to skip. Like if you're in Florida, you don't need to ask about ice dams. But in general, you want to ask all those because if you do, you covered your butt. You can go back and look at that later. All right, so let's look at upfront contracts. So in the Sandler submarine, after you do bonding and rapport, which is basically looking for a little common ground, spending a minute or two on that, you reiterate the upfront contract. So each step in 2.0 has an upfront contract. And again, this is like asking your kid to clean their room before you give them something. So the upfront contract, when a lead comes in, is figuring out the free quote versus the comfort consult. That is the comfort quiz, or also known as the 4 questions. So they need to take that, and that helps them understand how much pain they have. And if there's not much going on, you do a free quote. If there is something to solve, you go for a comfort consult. Now, the upfront contract for the free quote is no free consulting. I'm here to look at your equipment and quote you on changing it out for a similar piece of equipment. If you have problems to solve, we have another process for that. And then the comfort consult upfront contract is no discussing solutions while you're there. And the reason for this is partly to keep you on path, but also it's very real. It's at least half the time, once I leave a house and think about it, sleep on it, and typically talk with somebody else about what the issues are, my solution set changes for what I think we should do to that house and for that client. And so you don't want to tell them what you're thinking, because A, that's putting your sales hat back on and taking your consulting hat off. And one of our phrases is you want to leave the sales hat in the truck when you go in. So if you change your mind, that can be really problematic, because if you said, oh, well, I think we'll run a mini split and we'll do this, they're going to head off down that path of researching mini splits and trying to understand which brand they want, which there is no right answer. Then if you change your mind, now you have to drag them back down that path, kicking and screaming, and then send them down another path. So it's better just to keep your mouth shut at the time. Plus, that lets you stay on process, and like you don't want to be talking about what things might look like before you have collected the pain and the budget, because I mean the budget's going to change. So upfront contracts, what they really let us do, and this is pulled from one of the other training videos, is these let us create our own matrix. So, I mean, The Matrix is a wonderful movie series. I mean, particularly that first one, man, it was awe-inspiring. It blew all of our minds in ways that we hadn't seen before, because it set these rules up at the beginning that literally nothing was real. So you can manipulate anything. And the truth of the matter is you can do the same in your sales process. So if you set the rules up front, you can stick to them and good things will happen. And again, that's upfront contracts are really the beginning of that. So let's look at pain step. So pain step in free quote versus comfort consult, because again, you're going through the submarine repeatedly is what you're doing in 2.0. So it's not just one trip through, it's multiple trips through. So the first one is the free quote versus comfort consult. You send your clients to the 4 questions. So you have them rank on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being not a problem and 10 being a big problem. Do they have rooms that don't heat well? Do they have rooms that don't cool well? Are there any respiratory health issues in the house? Because good HVAC can oftentimes blunt those issues. And do they have any moisture problems? Is there water getting in? Do they have mold? Are there bugs? Their drainage issues, things like that. And this helps develop their pain and understand which direction they're going to go. And then it's an offer decline, because if they go through here and they've got all kinds of pain and they choose a free quote, they own it. That's not your problem anymore. So that's part of the offer decline and responsibly avoiding responsibility. Again, all these principles interweave. In the free quote, you're going to go and you want to offer static pressure, or we call it duct pressure because clients tend to grasp that better. So you offer that, particularly if you turn the system on and you hear an oil can go boom, boom, when the air turns on. You want to offer static pressure testing because that's going to create more pain and likely kick them to a comfort consult. So you're not going to ask a ton of questions there. But the key thing is there's no free consulting. If they start drilling you on consulting, it's like, well, so we have a process for that because I don't want to miss something and then not solve a problem and have you be mad at me. So we have a relatively inexpensive process for tackling that. So if there is pain, then you're going to reschedule to the comfort consult and go from there. Pain step in the Comfort Consult is quite extensive. It is built to figure out pain in a curious yet skeptical way, like we talked about in the last video. So, and you want to come at these questions, they're interview questions, but it's not an interrogation. You're just trying to understand and be curious and understand, is there something there? So developing the pain, you start by asking about an hour's worth of questions, the interview questions. Then you go take a look at their HVAC, and you may see some obvious things there that aren't right, and you just want to call those out. So, you just want to picture this and just dripping things on them until they're like, fine, what does it take to make it stop? Then you do the blower door test, and you get an idea of how leaky or tight the house may be, because that helps figure out which direction you're going to go. And then you do zonal diagnostics and infrared. So zonal is figuring out how much each room leaks, and it's really simple. I mean, zonal pressure diagnostics is this really fancy term for you take your manometer and you throw the hose underneath the door and you close the door and then you write down the reading. And it tells you whether it's well inside the house or well outside the house or somewhere in the middle. But if they have comfort issues, little Johnny's room doesn't heat or cool, and you run zonal and that room is really leaky, you aren't solving it with HVAC alone, because the load in that room is probably 30, 50%, maybe even 100% more per square foot than the other rooms. So unless you can get a ton more ductwork there, you're not going to fix it. So that's when shell measures start to look. So you're building pain for them. And then you sit back down and you have them prioritize those goals. So we aren't putting money on it yet. We're just asking them on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is it to solve these? And then oftentimes there's the discussion between the spouses, which is always kind of interesting, especially when they disagree wholeheartedly. One of my clients, there were 3 different goals where one was a 2 and the other was a 9. And it's like, well, okay then. So you write down the 9 and you go from there and you make a note of the 2. Now, then you move to the budget step. So in the Comfort Consult, this is all built in. So you want to prioritize their goals, like we were saying. And once you get those prioritized, this is the question you ask. If you were renting this house, how much more would you pay per month if those problems went away? So what you're trying to do here is figure out what the value is, not the price. So very different things. So what is it worth to make it go away? And once you understand that, is there a high likelihood path of getting there? There might be, there might not be. So is it champagne taste on a beer budget? Is it beer budget or beer taste on a beer budget? What might it be? And you want to see, is there a way to get there in a way that's profitable for you as well? So again, this is about what it's worth, not what it will cost, because those are going to be different things in most cases. And then the decision step in the Comfort Consult is once you send the report, you want to have a conversation with them and discuss what's going on. So originally we were saying send bids with the report. We've kind of backed off on that because when you send the report, you're going to give them ranges for what different things are going to cost. And so then you can have a conversation so you can tighten what they're looking for, and then you're not bidding them 20 different things. You're going to bid them 2 or 3. And so that's tailored to what they want, and then you're going to send the bid. And if you've done a good job lining up pain and budget, they're going to close themselves. You generally don't have to go chase people. They're going to let you know right then. I mean, oftentimes they'll do it on site. Okay, now one other really important point I want to make is we highly, highly stress don't say no. Like, don't refuse jobs. Instead, say no with price. And you can give them a heads up on this too. I could do that, but there's a whole lot of liability, so I need to charge more for it, and here's what it is. And that way they're going to go find something else. And you didn't point blank give them an ultimatum, so they are going to own that. You just responsibly shifted responsibility by having them go find another vendor to do something that's dumb. And the way to think about this is if there's something that someone asks you to do that you don't want to do, ask yourself, at what price would you be happy to do that? Where is it worth doing? So like if somebody wants you to install a piece of equipment that they bought themselves, you let them know, look, there's no warranty. I'm going to charge you $5,000 to install it because these tend to blow back a lot. And just make it clear to them, look, that is, it, I've had bad things happen from this. So happy to do it, but I have to charge what it's worth to do that. Well, then I'm not saving any money. Well, you're not. So that can be a helpful thing. And so what you're doing is you're saying no again with that responsibility transfer. So you're not actually saying no. You're saying, well, I need to charge this much and here's why. And then letting them go somewhere else. So you just let them take on the responsibility. So here's one of the scripts. I'm happy to do that for you. However, the odds of this repair failing in weeks or months are very high, so I can't offer a warranty on the work. If that's okay, sign here. And particularly for repairs, you're going to be scabbing things together and buying their machine days, weeks, or months so that you can get out of high season to where you can go replace it. This is a good way to responsibly avoid responsibility. Then another thing that we don't do with Sandler in 2.0 is we don't do the yes, no, no, maybe. This is set up for, again, B2B things where you come in and you're cold calling someone and the upfront contract is, so when we're done with this call, can we agree that you'll either give me a yes or a no on moving forward? No maybes. I'd much rather you just tell me no. And because we are offering the free quote versus comfort consults, we are doing offer and decline rather than yes, no, no, maybe. So, I mean, they're either going to get a free quote or a comfort consult if it's a replacement job. So you don't have to use this prospecting move. Well, I guess in what it is, you won't have a lot of suspects. You're always going to have prospects because you're going to be figuring out how are you going to their house. So you don't have to qualify a suspect into a prospect. They will already be prospects. So that's one piece we avoid. So those are some of the ways that we are using Sandler within HVAC 2.0. And I can't recommend spending a bunch of time with these enough. This is super important. Because if you don't have your head around this, a lot of the stuff that we do is going to sound outright crazy. It's not. It's very methodical. There's a reason that we do everything that we do. So if you dig into these and you begin to pound the Sandler process into your mindset, again, you're going to move to a consulting role rather than sales. You're going to lose your smarminess, and you're going to have better relationships and make nicer sales. Again, it's a natural result, not a goal. So dig into these, really important to deal with those. So that's Sandler and HVAC 2.0. I will see you next time in onboarding. I'm Nate Adams. Bye-bye.